All right. All right. Let's go ahead and get started with the content. Oop, that's my to-do list. Where am I going? That shouldn't be up. It is my guilty pleasure. I watch car reviews for things that I could never afford. Slash, I live in an apartment. My wife commutes by metro. There's no need for us to have multiple cars, but I can dream if I want to. Don't tell her that. Where am I going? Where is my slides? There we go. Okay. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, Coco has been nice enough to grace us with her presence. She just grunted at me. All right, so let's talk about content. So we talked about this in the last video. If you haven't looked at the announcement and things, go ahead and take a look at that first. But I'm assuming that you have. So last time we talked about Get, which was trying to access information that was already off of a server and sort of return it back to ourselves. So we were the client, and using parameters and different things, we were getting information off of the server and returning it back to us. So that GET request. So the stuff already existed on the server, the information was there, but I just wanted to receive it to be able to use it on my side. And as you can see, that's what you're going to be practicing for exercise 5, just receiving tweet information and using that for your own sort of benefit there. Similarly, the topics we're going to talk about today, which again are more in line with the REST operations that we've been doing, which are post, get, put, and delete. We're going to talk about post, put, and delete. And sorry, that was a run-on sentence, but post, put, and delete will work very similarly with the Twitter API and whatever API you end up using. So I probably won't explicitly be talking about Twitter again, the API, but I highly recommend that you, if you're even somewhat interested, to use what we're doing here and apply it to something that already exists. You never know when you might want to build something and use somebody's API, whether you're at a hackathon again, like I said last time, or just making something personal, a project with your friends or something like that. You never know. It's useful to learn this stuff and apply it also somewhere else. So I encourage you to do that. But again, we're talking about post in this video specifically. We'll probably talk about put and delete in the next one, in the next part that I'll post today. And then probably towards the end of the week, I'll talk about some of the implementation that I'm looking for your final project. And to be honest, we're done. I probably will record a video next week that will be my final like hoorah and like talking about what the exam is going to look like. Talk about any sort of final topics that I need to sort of answer and any questions you all have. But you know, we're there. We made it to the finish line. But yeah, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So first, if you want to take a moment now, we're not going to be using Postman for a minute. And in fact, after I finish talking about this, I'm going to pause the video in a moment and then we'll use Postman to actually try out our post requests. But if you have a moment now, go ahead and install Postman. The page looks a little bit like this. If you want to use the app itself, so like it actually installs onto your computer, or alternatively, you can use the Postman Chrome, Postman Chrome, the Chrome extension. It's not, I mean, you can see here it's deprecated. So I typically use the app and I'm going to be showing it to you using the app. But you know, if you want to go for it, you can always use this. It's probably a little more lightweight if you're running out of space on your computer or something like that. So just go there, download it. You shouldn't need to make an account. But if you do, you might as well, because you'll probably be using it quite a bit to test out your code. So I think that's about it for that. So let's talk about post. So again, post is essentially saying, I want to put some information onto the server. And so Postman is essentially going to allow us in a second to say, I want to trigger a post request specifically, and I want it to be with this information specifically. So for example, with what we did last time with our dealership, what if I want to post a new car into my dealership website. Postman is what we're going to be using to actually post that information on there, because we won't be able to, at least for now, do that straight through the browser. We'll have to use a specific way of saying that I want to use post to do this sort of action there. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. You'll be able to see how we test that out. We'll get to the middleware a little later as well. All right, so what I did was I copied and pasted the 427 example, or sorry, the 420 example, which was there last week. And I'm actually going to rename this. I'm going to delete this one. Yes. And I'm going to rename this. Rename expressed post. And all I did was copy and paste the example that we talked about last time. Oops, did I do the wrong one? No, this should be fine. Actually, no, this isn't fine. I wanted the one with... Did I delete the wrong one? Ugh, okay. Give me one moment. Let me open up the other example. I want the one with the actual dealership inside of it. And let me copy and paste that. Yeah, I deleted the wrong one. Whoops. Okay, let's take this. Close that. Paste it there. Okay, so just to recap a little bit, we have our dealership here with a couple of different JavaScript objects that have a brand, a model, and a year. We have our get request here that we dealt with last time, that we used to find a specific car based on the parameters for year, brand, and model. So it's sort of like searching. I'm going to minimize that. And then the last one was just getting the entire dealership and sort of sending that back. So we talked about both of those things. I'm just going to minimize them. I'm just going to leave them there for now. Now, with our post request, it's going to look the same. So we're going to use server, which is the name of my Express instance, server.post. And where am I going to post? I'm going to post to /API/dealership. Specifically. I'll add the extra slash. And last, I'm also going to have my callback function. Again, this is a callback function that you must have, especially since we're dealing with requests and responses. These are the objects that Express explicitly creates when you're using a post or a get or anything like that. All right, so this is what it looks like. So server.post to the dealership. Then I have a function for the request and the response. And yeah, that's about it. So let's say that I would like to send back a specific, or at least post out or print out on the page, or send back essentially to the response one piece of the JSON that's sent back to me. So for example, if I decide that I want to post a piece of information, I'm going to post specifically, post this. I'm going to do a, I don't know, Kia Stinger from 2000, let's say 19. I want to post this information. I'm going to be using Postman in a second to do that, but I want to use this sort of information to inform how I can access information in this post request. So let's say that somebody wants to post this information right here, and I would like to then sort of just return back the request that was just made. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do response, so res.send. And in here, I'm just going to send back, for now, the whole dealership to show that I'm just accessing that that the post request will work perfectly, or at least was able to access the information. So what this is doing is essentially it's going to take that request and then send back the whole dealership. So it'll send back the entire array. Now this might be nice for you, and we'll test this out in a moment. And I'm actually gonna take this, copy this, and paste it down here. But I want to actually take that whole request instead of just getting the post and then sending back information. I want to actually put that into the dealership. So whatever information was given, I want to put it inside. So we're gonna have to do something a little bit interesting. So first, I'm going to have to actually take or create a JSON. So create a JavaScript object that I'm then going to push inside of this dealership. So I'm going to say car equals, and make sure that you form it in exactly the same format that your JSONs were. So for example, I had brand, model, and year. Now I can't explicitly say Kia Stinger 2019 because I don't know that it's going to be that. Even though I know right here that that's the post that I'm going to do eventually, I don't know that that's the information. So how do I dynamically take what is in the post request and put it inside and replace what the brand and the model and the year are going to be? Well, the way that we do that is essentially we use the request.body and in this case brand. So what this is doing is it's saying from the request, its body, I'm grabbing specifically the brand and I'm assigning that into this new object. Next, for the model, I'm going to do for the request that was just made, the post request, I'm going to take the body and I'm going to specifically grab the model out of that. And that's what's going to be in this constant. And last, request.body.year. So I'm forming a new object based on the information from the request, which makes sense. Similar to what we did over down here with the parameters, where I did request.parameter.brand because I knew that the brand was there. I'm just doing that, but with the post request. Now, am I boring you? I don't know if you heard her just whine a little bit. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, so again, I want to put this and actually post it into the dealership that I have, this array right here. It's pretty simple. I just have to use the normal way of pushing into a dynamic array in JavaScript. I just do dealership dot push, and I push the car that I just created. Car. And last, let's say that I want to confirm, and typically we do this where if somebody does a post request, you're gonna display what that is, or the post request that was just made on the screen. So I'm just gonna do response.send like we've done before. I don't know why I keep looking down my notes. Respond.send the car. All right, now I know right now this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense because we can't test it out, and I'm waiting to test that out a little bit until I set up Postman, and then we'll come back to it in a moment. But let me just go line by line and sort of explain what I just did here. So first, we're creating an object to add into our database, and I'm saying that in heavy air quotes there. My database, my library, where my data is. So dealership is my array. So I'm creating an object in here of the same format, so it has brand, model, year in that exact order. And I am creating something so then I can push it into that array again. Now, the way that I access the information from post is I use request.body.brand and also request.body.model. And request.body.year. But essentially, the gist of it is request.body is looking at the body of the request and then grabbing the brand and the model and the year from that request. So think of it almost as that JSON that we've seen before. So for example, a request might look like this. Then the body of it is this specific part of the array. And then .brand is grabbing that, .model is grabbing that, .year is grabbing that. Then last, we push that car into the dealership. So we're pushing that into the array. And then last, we send that back into localhost 3000, for example, just so that it displays the car that I just added in. That's essentially what it's doing. Now, this is not going to explicitly work yet, specifically because request.body is not something that's super built in. And actually, I forgot to show you all what that API reference looks like. You can see here, request.body. So it contains the key value pairs of data submitted in the request body. By default, it is undefined and is populated when you use such parsing. Well, where did I get such from? When you use body parsing middleware such as express.json and express.url encoded. So this is what we're missing, this middleware that they're talking about here. What is middleware? So essentially what middleware is, think of it almost as sort of what the name says there. It's that middleman, that intermediary that takes the information from the post request and it zhuzhes it a little bit so that it looks both nice for us to be able to access and also consistent enough in the JSON format, because we want it as a formed JSON. So all we have to do in order to use that middleware is add this line right here, app.use express.json, at the very top before we use any sort of post request. So for example here, up here in line 3, I'm just going to do, in my case, it's not called app, it's called server. So server.use, and you can use this and use multiple types of middleware in there as long as you use server.use. Express.json. Just like that. And you can see another example right here. You can use express.url encoded for parsing an application. We'll probably talk about maybe one or two more of these, maybe one more later on in these lectures. But just know middleware goes at the top so that it applies to the rest of the code. So again, we need to use that in order to fully form and be able to use request.body properly, as the reference guide just told us. We can't use request.body if you don't have that. So if it's for some reason not working for you, make sure you have that line there, or else it won't necessarily work for you. So we have this fully formed. We have this worked out. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to set up Postman and set up the slides for that. Well, not slides. I don't have slides for them, but set up Postman for you. And I'll see you after I pause the video. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Postman and how to use it. So I have, again, my desktop app. If you're using the Chrome extension, it shouldn't look much different, to be honest. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new request, a basic request. Request name, test dealership, select collection. Okay. All right, and it'll look a little bit like this. In most cases, you won't actually have to create a new request. It should just have one pop up there, but just in case you needed to see it. So this will look very confusing, but I promise you it'll be easy once we sort of get to it. So for example here, we can test our dealership with a GET request, but we're again trying to do post, so let's scroll down to post here. We're going to enter the address that we're trying to access from. So for us, it's going to be http://localhost:3000/API/dealership. That's where we're trying to do this request at. In here, down here, what I recommend you do is body, raw, and notice here this xwww.form URL encoded. was one of the things that we could do with middleware that was in the documentation. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, we're doing raw and not text. We're instead doing JSON since we're sending back a JSON. Something just got in my eye. And what we're doing here is we're going to type out what we want to post. So for this example, I want to post something that is name Kia model Stinger year 2019. Now it's gonna notice here it's gonna give me bad string. The only thing you have to do here is surround your object sort of like attributes in there. Surround them in double quotes, and you should be good to go. It's one of those annoying JavaScript things. When you use double quotes, when you use single quotes, when you use a semicolon, one of my least favorite things. Missing commas between them. All right, so this is what I'm going to be posting. I'm posting a raw JSON, which sounds gross, but a JSON. And down here, we'll see our response. So the response that we send back, we're not going to be seeing directly in on our browser. We're instead going to be seeing it here since Postman is simulating that post request. So we have this set up. We have our JSON that we're trying to send in set up. Now let's go back to our code and let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and comment out this second part that I did to push the individual car. And I'm just going to try out the simple post request. So whatever is posted, it just sends back the dealership. So what we should see down here in our response is the dealership without the car that we passed in included. So first things first, let's run our code. So I'm going to do Control-C. I'm going to run node express post .js. It's going to connect to port 3000. And then I go back here and I hit send. Important things to note here, it said 200 OK. That was my status. So it means it worked fine. In this case, since we haven't written any errors, it should work fine every time, even if it doesn't quite send to the right URL, but whatever. And down here, we see our pretty JSON, our response body. So you can see it's called body, and our response is in here. So we sent back just the whole dealership. So that's why it's all there. All right. Let's go back here. All right, so let's go ahead and take this away now. And I'm going to then uncomment this. And I'm going to post a different car. Oops, not here. All right, so I'm going to clear this response, which I'm going to do on the left side here. You can always save this to a file. I'm just going to leave it as is. All right, so now I'm going to post. Let me do something different. And I think you're seeing this because I posted earlier today when I was doing this example myself. But let me do a different car so that we can see something a little different. So I'm going to do Tesla Model S from 2017. So I want to post this, and what I'm using now, sorry I glossed this over earlier, I'm using our code here. And the code here is saying I'm creating a car, and I'm going to be pushing that car into the dealership once I get that request. It's receiving the request body brand, request body model, request body year, and then it sends back the entire dealership with now this car attached to it. So if we send, nope, I don't want to do that yet because I changed my code. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to stop this, run it again. Whoops. End of input. I think it's because I was missing. I uncommented that curly brace. Let's go back. All right. So now I'm going to go to Postman. I'm going to send it. We see it was 200. Okay. And now we see down here, it added our model and our year. Oh, notice here, it didn't put in brand. Why did it not put in brand? Because I didn't name it brand. I named it name for some reason. So I'm going to do this again. And I'll send again. And you can see now it added a new input for the correct formatting. So if I don't correctly match it up, so for example, in the previous one, I named it name instead of brand. It just added the ones that match up with the JSON, the previous sort of formed out JSONs. And now that I correctly made it with brand, model, year, it added it in there. Let's see. I think that's about it that I wanted to talk about here. Whoops, that's me. That I wanted to talk about here. Yeah, that's about it for this. So make sure that you know how to do this. I'm going to pause the video one more time. We're going to talk a little bit about throwing some errors there, similar to what we did before with our status, and making sure that we're getting the right formatting for this. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pause the video and then we'll get back in a moment. All right, so let's talk about the very last thing, which is scrubbing our information a little bit for our own use. So before, just to sort of refresh your memory and also to draw some parallels here, when we were doing a GET request over here, so when there was a GET request to this specific place, which was this specific function, this specific GET request was looking for a specific car in the dealership. If it didn't find it, then it returned this 404 status. And this I sort of want to test out with you all so that we can see that it pops up at the bottom over here. You'll see my previous example is showing that. So I want to make sure that I'm throwing the correct error to show that something does not exist, it's not there. So let's go ahead and try this out. So where am I? Okay, here. So here's my post request. And let's say that I want to throw an error if my request.body.year is not a number. Is not. So if it is not a number, I don't want it to work. Or if my request.body.model equals Pinto. Because nobody wants to explode in a car. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about there. The Ford Pinto was well known for, at least for a while, maybe it was overblown, but well known to explode if it got rear-ended back in the 70s. Had to be after the oil crisis. So I don't want a Pinto, and if the year is not a number, then what am I going to do? I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to copy and paste it because I don't feel like typing it out again. And I'm just going to say I'm going to send a 404 status. In fact, let me actually look up. I can't remember. Post error code. Client error. Here we go. Nice tutorial. Oh, this is nice. Okay, so informational codes, success codes are 200. That's why we saw 200 earlier. Redirection, client error, server error. So again, I don't know if 404 is technically what we want to throw. So let's take a look. Forbidden, unauthorized, bad request, generic. Yeah, it's not. Ah, there we go. Here's one. Not acceptable. So let's throw that one, 406. So we're going to throw 406 and say 406 forbidden post request. All right, so I'm going to go back to Postman. And I feel like I've said Postman and Postman and all different versions, but I went ahead and tried this out. And instead of a year being a number, I put in a string there. So this should trigger and make sure that it won't actually post. So let's go ahead and try this out. So I'm going to send this. Scroll down a little bit. 404 not found. Oh, this is with the previous one. Hold on. Try that again. Make sure I saved it. Yep, I did. Okay, so let's try it out again. This is running with the 404. Okay. 406, not acceptable. And notice we didn't say not acceptable, but because we threw a 406 and that's what is defined as not acceptable, then it autofills it here, which is nice. And now we see the body that I sent back, which was 406 forbidden post request. So you can do all kinds of things with there. With that, with there is not a correct sentence. I was thinking of making you all, and I might even recommend you do. I would recommend you do this even for like a library or something. It'll work the same way. And scrubbing the title and make sure that it's a title that exists out there and have like an array with all possible, or a file with all possible titles, and you run a helper method to see if that actually exists. If it does exist, then you can add it in. Otherwise, it throws a 406. You can do that. I recommend that you might as well try it. So, for example, with this dealership example, if you want to run with this instead of writing your own, you could create or generate a list. I'm sure you can Google one of all possible car brands. And then if somebody puts in gibberish, then you won't be able to add it in there. Or somebody, based on the car brand, they give you the wrong model that doesn't exist, then you say it doesn't exist. And sort of to show you how that sort of parallels with real life, if I go to, let's go, for example, eBay Motors, where all respectable broke people go check out cars. For example, here, this is going to be a post. If this was a post request, which it's not, this is more of a get. But I get an Audi, so they put Audi in the request, and if it's an Audi, then it narrows it down and it says, okay, these are the only possible ones. So I want to do a TTRS. URL won't really matter. Actually, this would be a better example. Year, 2015. In 2015, the only car brands that existed were these. So let's go ahead and try Freightliner, this, and then it sort of autofills the rest of it. And then if it works, then you can post that car into your dealership. If it isn't something that is recognized, then it won't. So that might be something good for you to try out, since it's not much different than what we've been doing so far. There's also other middleware for you to be able to use and other things with NPM that you can use to make sure that you are scrubbing the post request to make sure that it's not code or anything like that, and it's actually JSON. I'm not going to cover that in the interest of time, and since we have lost a lot of time with this class. If we had, we would have gotten there to stuff like, yeah, never mind. I just won't get into it. Yeah, that's about it. So this is the video for posts. Please make sure that you know how to follow along with this, and I'll post this example. And I'll see you in the next video when we talk about delete and put, which will be relatively straightforward after we've talked about these two. So see you.